Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. I'm going to hand over the mic almost immediately to Mike because I asked in the Hypertrophic Time Chamber whether or not they'd like a musical intro from Mike again, and 39 votees said yes. 7 people said pass, Mike, but 39 to 7, I don't know what ratio that is. I don't know what percentage that is, but clearly they want another musical intro. So have you got a banger for us again?
Oh, I don't know about banger, and I was kind of half not
It's always
prepared
a
because
banger.
right, okay. So this is going to be a rendition of, well, in fact, we'll see. Okay, I'm just going to go with it, and we'll go from there. So, improve, then season, Steve, Mike. Oh no, do you know what? Can I just start?
I'm not
I've
editing
totally
any of this.
blown it. I need to start from like a blank when I introduce it next week. I've totally blown
Right.
it.
That's your homework for next week, Mike. You're going to work
Yeah,
on that
I'm gonna
intro.
work on it.
I'm really bad for songs, and I've, I've, I don't like to say it because I think it reinforces it. When you say you're bad at X or I am
Mm,
this way, I think it ends up reinforcing it. So, I have at times struggled to remember names of things. I'll say that, or dates and occasions sometimes. My brain works in an interesting way. I remember the most random things and not things that I truly wish I could remember. And an example of that is lyrics to songs. I don't often listen to like lyrics of songs or like, I don't know, national anthems and stuff. People like know it off by heart. It's definitely not something I know. But one of the only lyrics to songs I know quite a bit of it for some reason is I like big. I think I told you, baby got back. I like big butts.
mm, yeah,
Uh, yeah. So anyway, let's go into the pod. We've done the intro, guys. Thank you for it last time. Thank you for voting on the poll. How are things on your end, Mike? How are you doing?
yeah, things are good. So I guess last week, obviously, I had a bit of a week off the clinic. So from a recovery perspective, it was really quite nice. I feel like that kind of gave me a bit of a bump up in terms of like how I was feeling. And then this week back into the clinic, but again, feeling pretty good. And training's continuing to go well. Really feeling locked in, really feeling just that I'm enjoying my training. And do you know what? I've actually, when you have just those moments where you look in the mirror and you're just like, ah, everything, there's a bit more shape there, there's a bit more size there, kind of thing. And I'm like, I'm filling out, there's just more shape there. You just have those little nudges in how the physique's looking. And it's felt like that the last couple of weeks.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's really nice actually.
On a related note, I don't know when it happened, but it was in the last like couple of years. I just remember I was showering and I was like washing my back, and I was like, hey, I don't remember that being there. And I think it was probably what I remember it being was like my low lats. Like there was just this thickness that was coming around my rib cage. I was like, I don't remember that being there. So yeah, it's nice when you get that. It's kind of similar to those like general indicators of if you have a t-shirt that you've worn for the last years and then suddenly, not suddenly, it's going to be gradual, right? But it's tight in areas that it wasn't tight before. That's
Mm,
always nice. The weird thing that happened to me on a related note, I wasn't intending to speak about this, but my belt that I wear, I was for a number of weeks struggling to get it. Like I thought I was going to have to move up a notch. Basically, I was one notch off the smallest in prep, which obviously I was never going to maintain that. And then I'd been off 2 off, but for a time, the 2 off was a bit loose. And then there was a time where it was getting like, man, that's tight. I'm going to probably have to move to 3 off soon. And for whatever reason, over the last couple of weeks, it's been back to like easily getting back to 2 off. And my weight actually has come down. And I tell you, like, I don't know what has happened because I haven't eaten any less. And so I've actually had to bump my food up. We were speaking last week, I think, about my calories, and we're on like the same. I've had to bump them up another 100. And I just have to be patient to see that change. I think sometimes, and I'm like that, I'm like, when's the scale going to go up? Maybe I need a bit more. And I'm like, no, it will show itself. Sometimes there's just a delay there. So, because obviously we're trying to target a relatively slow rate of gain, it's just one of those waiting games. So, that was an interesting thing. I don't really, again, I can't explain it all I can say is I think my weight jumped a bit faster than I was expecting previously. And it's a good reminder that, again, I didn't bring food back down. So it was a good reminder just to be like, hey, you really, especially when you're trying to gain slowly, which again, I think is recommended, especially for pretty advanced natural bodybuilders, you just have to really be patient and be like, is my training, are things going in the direction they should be in the gym, which is probably the most important? Like, don't be impatient with the food.
Definitely. And like it almost to me, it's like just don't go looking for it. Just know that it's going to happen or it's happening, and just enjoy what you're doing. Just enjoy being in the gym. Don't look at the mirror from a perspective of like, oh, am I growing or am I not growing? It's like, nah, just enjoy being in the gym, enjoy feeling good, enjoy training, enjoy eating. And then like as if you're not looking out for it, you then just every so often you get those moments where you're like, you do catch a glance in the mirror and you're like, oh, this is nice, kind of thing. And also it's so much more pleasant. It's kind of like when you go out for a meal, and whenever we've had high expectations of a meal, it's never really lived up. Whereas when we don't have expectations going into a meal, it's probably better than we expected.
I think that's like an actual thing. At least it was funny. Literally today, I saw Johnny Watson. Shout out Johnny Watson if he's listening from Propane Fitness, who I'm sure a bunch of the listeners will know Propane Fitness. There was a reel of him just saying how I think it was actually a TED talk that he saw, where it was a case of like to feel happiness, low expectations are key. And I think I said that to you at some point, and I must have picked it up somewhere in the ether. And I'm similarly to Johnny, and I'm guessing it's from this original TED talk, which was probably pretty big. I can't tell you the reference, but yeah, it is that low expectation thing is key. But also, it sings to trust in the process and just enjoying the process, enjoying the ride, and ticking those daily boxes. I do think there is a sweet spot to be struck, though. Same with like you don't want to chase PRs, but you also don't want to just get complacent. It's similar with like your nutrition. I don't want to be looking at the scale weight in a month's time and be like, or 2 months time and be, oh, I'm the same on the scale. That's just probably not what I really want. Despite some people saying bulking is dead and you don't have to be in a calorie surplus to maximize muscle growth, I think probably I want to be seeing that go up as kind of for the best results for me. So yeah, it's just a reminder.
But then it's also, I think you always have if you've got that in mind, you look at the long-term trend. So if you then look back and you go, right, for the last month or whatever, or the last few weeks, it hasn't been doing it, then you're like, right, I will nudge it up. Not the other way around of again being reactive off of 1 week or whatever.
Yeah, it's like one scale weight jump or dip versus like one slightly poor or better performance. It's like it's nice, but it doesn't like a great performance. A PR is nice, but it's nothing like it's the work you've been. It's just a sign of you've been doing the work previously, and it's nothing to like. I guess it comes back to, and I'm sure I've heard this in like sports psychology, like don't over celebrate your wins and don't like torture yourself about your losses. Be a bit more stable. So yeah, I guess the only other news I have on my end to discuss is Colin, who, if those who follow me on Instagram, I know we wanted to touch on this. He did a NPC show, a natural show, NPC natural show. And obviously, those who have been following, Colin is an animal. Like, he has a lot of muscle mass on that frame. He is a seasoned competitor. And the great thing is, we achieved his goal, which was to get into the best shape that he'd ever been competitively, which he definitely did tick off. Unfortunately, that doesn't always mean you are going to get the outcome you want on stage. I believe he maybe did this show or similar and won his class, whereas this time round, he came third in his class. And it's just, again, that's the game of bodybuilding. You never know who's going to turn up on the day. You could be a better bodybuilder than you were previously, but better bodybuilders than you could even turn up, or the judges deem it that way at least. I've only actually seen 2 photos from the day, so I can't make that much of a judgment on it. But from what I saw, first place, I think probably deserved first place. He was, from what I saw, a little sharper than Colin, and it seemed he was posing well and quite classic. Whereas I know that's not something Colin has spent tons of time on, like we've done time on his posing, but it's not like, some people really get into the weeds of
Yeah.
every transition, everything like that. I can just imagine that was kind of what he was like. And he was very shapely. Colin is a bit of a, like I said, he's got a lot of mass. When I look at Colin, I look at him as a bodybuilder, not as a classic competitor, which I'll come on to. Second place, from what I saw, I don't really understand the second place that was there. Like, he looked under-muscled to Colin, not more conditioned, not more classic, really. So it's just a bit unfortunate. It's one of those. Again, I'm basing that off 2 photos, quite literally 2 or 3 photos, I think, that I've seen. So I can't really make any judgments. And a lesson for us was, we were pretty assertive with his backload. So we did, because we wanted to bring in a bit more condition, and we'd been generally running 5 low days, 2 high days, and he looked his best after 2 high days. We ran something very similar, but had run him a bit harder into the show, so a bit more depleted than usual. So we thought we might be able to be a bit more assertive with the carb up. And the first day, like, he was as tight as ever in the evening. There was no sign of spillovers or anything. So second day, in my experience, quite often you can be a bit more aggressive than you think you could be, if that makes sense. It's almost like, if you think you're going to go up 20 grams of carbs, go up 30, 40, because people get nerves and, I don't know, they end up burning it off somehow, and they wake up super tight the next day, in my experience, typically. But I woke up the next day and I looked at Colin's PM photos and I was like, holy cow, you are full as a house. He was like, if I showed you his PM photos, you just be like, this guy's bursting from the seams, but spilled. So he definitely had lost condition. And in the morning, he said he was feeling a little puffy, and he looked a little softer to me as well. He also had his tan on at this point, so it's a little harder to assess. That always throws a bit of a spanner in the works when you get the tan on. And obviously, like, thankfully for him, he was still at home. It was a local show. That can add a spanner into the works as well, trying to get lighting, eyes on a physique. And this is just where coaching experience comes in, where you're like, right, I can kind of assess a physique under any sort of lighting, so long as I can get eyes on you and you're lit enough. And I just asked him to go for a 30-minute walk, like reasonably paced walk, like don't sweat all over your tan, but like let's burn off some energy and burn off some glycogen is really what I was looking for. Let's not do too much fluids so that we're not adding more kind of, if you are spilled and you consume more water, it's just adding to the problem kind of thing. So I was like, hey, just sip on fluids and do 2 rounds of our pump up and let's see how things are. He did that. He reported back to me like an hour later and he was like, I feel really good. I've tightened up a ton, and it basically did what we wanted it to do. Because I was like, hey, very full, but maybe a little excess. So yeah, that was a good lesson. I will say, I very rarely, I can't really even count number of people I've ever spilled. It's just, it doesn't often happen. One, I'm relatively conservative with that, and I don't know. 2, just most people I bring to stage are shredded, and it's pretty damn hard to spill a shredded physique unless you go really off. And yeah, thankfully he tightened up, but I thought that was good, kind of something to share, that things that you can do on show day to help. Anyway, so it went well, and he just was gutted, because I think as a first timer, it's great, and we develop that mindset with our athletes of being about the process, the journey, learning, not about the outcome. And so most of the time, with the people that we get to work with, which I'm super honored for, they have the great understanding of that. And so when they get their placing, even if it isn't what they wanted, which is first place, right, they appreciate the journey, the everything that goes into it. The first season is often about the next seasons, and then you're maybe more competitive. But once you have someone who's done shows and they've done well, you come into a season with some sort of expectations. So we had some expectations which obviously weren't met. The great thing that Colin did is, I think he actually went to the gym that day and like trained legs or something and just went hard. You can respond in 2 ways, can't you, Mike? You can either binge your face off and give up and like wallow in self-pity, or you go the other way, which is what Colin did, and like go and have a hard training session, get back to plan. So I think he enjoyed a meal out with, I say I think, because he was saying he was going to. He hasn't actually confirmed to me what he had, but I'm not too concerned about it. But he went out for a meal with his partner and their daughter, and then kind of got back to me after a day on kind of diet break macros, not like a huge deficit, but not a maintenance intake, so just a bit moderate, and was just like, dude, I'm this is what I think. What do you think? I'm ready to kind of push for more condition. And I was like, hey, if you want to push for more condition, I'm game for that, but I want you to do open because you're a
Mm,
bodybuilder, not a classic physique competitor.
mm,
And after a bit of back and forth, he's now he's doing OCB, which again, OCB don't want like a super shredded physique for classic
mm,
from reading their criteria at least, versus like a WMBF now that we have and we'll be at this weekend. They want
mm,
shredded classic bodybuilders. So anyway, he's doing bodybuilding now, and we're digging for a bit more condition because we've got time. We've got like 5-6 weeks now before those, and they're pro qualifiers. From what I've understand, there's enough in the class so that he could turn pro. And yeah, if he can put his foot down, we can. He's got enough muscle to like. As long as we keep that and bring the condition, he's going to be dangerous. And again, I think you agree? Looking at Colin, you're not like he's classic. You'd be like, that's a bodybuilder.
yeah. And he's not. I would say from the photos that I've seen, his waist isn't super blocky, but he just doesn't have that classic shape that some other people do. I don't know what it
Not
is,
a
but
bad classic. He's not bad for
no.
classic at all. It's just not like quintessential classic. I think there was a comparison, at least on our WMBF judging call, and I've had this chat with Eric Helms at some point. It was like a comparison because the WMBF criteria for classic versus open is in some senses similar in that they don't want classic less conditioned or less muscled. But when you compare, they had like a pro natural bodybuilder WMBF 2, and they had, oh, why have I forgotten his name? I interviewed him on the podcast. I can picture him right now. I told you I'm bad with names. You'll know he won the WMBF world title. His
No.
name's just completely gone out of my head. American.
Well, oh, American. Oh, not Brian DaCosta. Not so. When
Yes,
I
Brian
think of
DaCosta, exactly.
oh, there you
So
go.
it was a comparison between Brian and another competitor. And it was like, hey, Brian is world class as a bodybuilder, but as a classic competitor, he's not
Mm,
quintessentially classic versus this other guy. I think actually Colin is a good example versus Brian, where they're like just big, like not like bulky, but not obviously in the wrong way, but they're
mm,
not got those classic, really quintessential classic lines and things like that. They're just like brutal, muscular bodybuilders. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry, I'm taking over.
No, not at all. Like because I think you can have both of those types of bodybuilders are both like inspirational and motivating when you watch them, but in different ways. Like you've got the Colin more like just pure extreme, like dense muscle, etc. And you're like, oh, that's so cool. But then equally, you've got the more like shapely, again, classic lines. But that's inspiring, but in a different way. It's a bit more artistic, a bit more kind of like flowing type thing. And they're just different, I would say. And again, I think if you can have that separation, I think that's a nice distinction and nod to the pros of both aspects of those different types of physiques.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's basically the direction we're going. We've got like 5-6 weeks to bring in some more condition. And it's going to be tough for him because he's already as conditioned as he's ever been. So now it's all new territory at this point. So it's going to be a tough dig. I know he's got a lot on, but he can do it. He can definitely do it. I think sometimes you need an extra nudge. Like I think this, again, you can take it the wrong way, the right way, a loss, let's put it that way, where anything less than a win is a loss. It can be fuel for the fire. And that's how he's going to take it. And that's how he's taking it. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Definitely. And in some ways, sometimes those sorts of results can be a positive because it does give you that extra, boost to just dig that little bit harder.
Yeah, for sure. I think yeah, having experience as a bodybuilder is great. I would never, I say this because, again, I say it not knowing because I don't know what it would be like. But if you did your first season and went pro, it's like you haven't earned it in the same way. There's something about earning it. I guess the comparison would be to winning the lottery or something. It's just like you get given this money. That money is not going to mean the same as if you kind of earned it through hard work, in a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of one of those. But I don't think I have any like industry weekly news updates. I can't think of anything that's really been going on. Not precisely. The only thing I can really think of, Mike, is I know Kasim Hansen has been doing a lot of kind of interviews and debates on biomechanics with various people within the Instagram space who, quote unquote, are science based individuals. So, and I think he actually just released one with Joe Bennett, the hypertrophy coach.
Mm.
And I'm excited to listen to that. But that's the only thing I can really think of off the top of my head. I haven't really seen any like big news elsewhere in the space. And I'm assuming you haven't, though.
Well, do you know what I was going to say? Because I purposely tried to look at a few things come
This should be
before
your
today.
homework each week. You have to come up
Exactly.
with the weekly news.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to try and make an effort, because if Steve asks me, I don't want to say that I don't know. And this isn't, we haven't talked about it, but it isn't super duper new, like new news. But obviously, Terence Ruffin won the New York Pro a couple of
Mhm.
weeks ago, and Nick Walker won as well. So that was cool. That was cool to see. And I Eric Helms, he released a new vlog recently on updating him on his prep. He's 6 weeks into a new diet. So that was again cool to follow his processes in where he's looking to go. So I think he's looking to compete at the WNBF Taiwan, which
Nice.
it, and he said that that's got 400 competitors in it. It's like the second biggest to Worlds. Well, it's bigger than Worlds. So like that's a huge competition, and he's going to compete in Classic at WNBF Taiwan to try and get his pro card in Classic, and then obviously compete as a pro at the WNBF Worlds and things from there. So yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't watched his latest vlog, so it's good that you've watched that. And again, Eric, I think is a good example of he's never going to be a like top open bodybuilding pro because for his height and weight class, he's going against some massive individuals. But in classic, I could see Eric. He's got some nice lines. He likes his posing. I could see him
Mm,
doing well in classic. And potentially, it'd be a better classic, but like be better as a classic pro than open pro. I don't think you could say the same for me. I don't know about you, Mike. I have some good classic shots that I can definitely hit. Like from the rear, I can do all your like whatever. My rear shots are good. Side again, I can do. But again, it just comes back. I think my front shot's always going to hold me back a little bit. I think inevitably because again, for classic, you need that teeny little waist, which also helps you in open bodybuilding, and I don't have that. So I wouldn't count myself out exactly. I think if I put in a lot of homework in posing, I might be able to do something. I'm not saying that I won't because it does interest me to try it at least. It's more appealing than like a men's physique, for example.
yeah. I would say that you strike me as just a bodybuilder. You're a through and through bodybuilder because again, you've just got this wow factor from an extreme perspective. Like I think your muscle mass and like some of your shots, it's just like pow, you know. But the again, just the natural like flow and the classic lines isn't quite there. The same, and I think you'll always I think it would always just be something that you do for experimentation and enjoyment maybe, rather than like, oh, I'm looking to be my best. So it's kind of like it would be a side hustle for you as opposed to the main piece of the pie.
Yeah, yeah, that's why I'm like, I could try it. Like, it's so similar to bodybuilding. You could try it, but I'll see what it's like. Obviously, judging it, seeing the type of individuals that are doing it. But yeah, I think inevitably, like when I think of classic, I think of like they are people with it. With this judging criteria, classic is scored more heavily on symmetry and on posing, and not that posing is something. I think posing is something you can really work on and you can get nailed down, but symmetry is highly influenced through bone structure, and that's the thing that held me back in open body, like in bodybuilding. So it's like if that's even more prioritized, that's kind of like, hey, that's one of my cards that have been less dealt as a bodybuilder. So it's like probably I'm going to be even less proficient at that. So it's like I'm not going to be a world class pro natural bodybuilder nor classic. I don't think, which is unfortunate, but it's just one of those things. Right? I'll do my best to be.
Yeah, I think also you're not someone who loves posing as such. I think in order for you to, if you like, you'd have no problems putting in the work to do posing, but it would be much more mental energy for you because it would be like a bit more of an effort. And I think that when you're in the deepest of preps, it's like that extra mental energy to do that extra bit of practice that you know you might need. It's like, oh, could you spend that mental energy somewhere else? Whatever that might be. So I think it's, again, it's all weighing up, pros and cons.
Yeah, the posing is definitely not something that comes naturally to me, but it's like you said, I'd be willing to invest the time and effort into it. It's whether or not when you start working on it and you get a bit more proficient at it, you start enjoying it more. That's the only thing I wonder. The only other news I have, Mike, is I'm imagining you might have seen this individual. I'd be almost shocked if you haven't. The listeners will, and there'll definitely be listeners who know what his name is. Janaki, Eric Janaki is his name. He's Eric Janaki Fitness on Instagram, and he just turned pro. So he's got 1.7 million followers over on Instagram. So people have likened him to like a Sam Sulek and Will, who again, they're like social media influencers who went pro this year. Obviously, we covered Will. We never covered
Mm.
Sam, which in hindsight probably would have been great to have covered Sam Sulek. You know Sam Sulek, right?
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna. Are you just saying that, or do you actually know
No,
Sam
I'm
Sulek?
not. Genuinely,
Okay,
I
you
know
do.
who Sam Sulek is.
Good. So anyway, people have likened him to them as like a influencer that's gone pro. He was coached by why am I going to now forget his name? He's been on the podcast. I might be able to find it. Oh, no, I can't even remember. Callum Pro Coach. I've forgotten his last name. I remembered that without finding. Callum Ramzik. Ramzik?
Hmm.
Something along those lines. I apologize, Callum, if you ever listen to this or what have you. But yeah, I saw Callum was coaching him, which is pretty cool. And yeah, he's been pursuing his pro card this year. I don't know how many shows he's done, but I mean, he's huge. I think he just needed probably condition was like the thing from what I gathered. But yeah, pretty cool. That's the only other news I have. I haven't dug into it at all. I just saw he turned pro, which I was like, cool.
I saw on the Natty News Daily Instagram thing that I can't remember his name, but it's like Julian something. But you know the 18-year-old bodybuilder who's gone a bit viral because he's so big for an 18-year-old.
Yes, he's got unbelievable arms.
Yes, and he's
Yeah.
spent some time with Larry Wheels.
Oh, has he? Yeah, Julian Fitzgerald.
That's it.
Yeah, 5'11", lifetime natural, born in 2006. So I don't know how old that makes him off the top of my head. Oh, it's like 21, right?
Hmm.
No, wait, is that right? Even younger than that. He's not even 21, mate. If it's 2006, that make him 19?
Yeah, he's 19.
Flip. And of recording, because his birthday's soon. On the 16th, he's going to be 20. That
Yeah,
is absolutely nuts. So really, we should do a screen share when we do this sort of thing. But I actually don't know how
yeah.
to do that off like hand here. But anyone, if they want to look him up, Julian XF1TNESS, or like you said, find him on Natty News Daily, which hopefully you guys are following. Absurd. He is also an example of someone who, looking at him, he wouldn't be a classic bodybuilder.
Mm.
He is blocky through the waist. And that's coming from someone blocky, but I mean, maybe he could improve his posing, but he has absolutely unbelievable arms. I haven't seen what his leg development is.
I,
I've got a
his
video here.
calf
He's got,
development isn't great.
yeah, he has a very interesting shape. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, he got like the world's best arms, but the rest of his physique is kind of it's not very, like his symmetry doesn't look great for that. But yeah, unbelievable. I can't really say too much on him. But yeah, I'd be interested to see him try and hit some bodybuilding poses, and would he actually look like a bodybuilder, or does he just have really freaky like arms from the looks of things? His
Mm.
abs also are crazy blocky from the looks of things. Uh, yeah, that's the weekly news. Should we get to
There you
questions, or
go.
is there anything else?
No, I think that's everything. I tell you what, just it was a small personal update, but it was quite nice because at the weekend just gone, uh, one of your ex-clients came up to me, and I was just in my own little world training, and I just got this kind of, tap on my shoulder, and it was like, oh, hey, Mike. And when you have that split second where you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know who this person is, but I should know. It's like, when you're like, I should know this person's name, but I have no idea who it is. But fortunately, we hadn't met in person before. But yeah, one of your clients, he came up to me and it was just super nice. Ash is a lovely, lovely guy. So shout out to you, Ash, just for saying hi. And it's really nice sometimes when just people like, say hi. Because I know sometimes I just stay in my own little world sometimes. Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, if anyone ever sees us in the real world, they want to say hi, definitely do say hi. But yes, Ash May, I haven't worked with him for years now, but he was a joy to work with at the time. A young guy with lots of potential in the fitness industry as a whole, let alone his own competitive kind of pursuits. Did he have he had a couple of tattoos, right? Because when I worked
Oh,
with him, he didn't have any, but I think he got some sleeves done recently.
he's got some sleeves. To be honest with you, I wasn't focused on that, so I didn't notice. But I saw from his pictures that he had some sleeves.
The news that I actually thought you were going to bring up was the Ninja Creamy.
Oh, and that as well. Yeah,
I have a horrible feeling, Mike, you haven't used it yet.
I've used it every day since I bought it.
Have you actually? Why have you
Yeah,
not shared this
genuinely.
information? I thought you were
No,
going to put it up on your stories or something. I was like, if Mike uses the Ninja Creamy, he's going to put it on his story. That now makes me have a sneaky suspicion. Oh no, if you've used it every day, it must have been good. How have you enjoyed it?
it's all right. I would
I was going to
say.
say, I bet you didn't enjoy it as much as because I would have thought you'd be posting about it or you'd done a story.
So I think this comes back to actually what we said at the start around expectations. I think because so many people have been like, oh, you need to get one, you need to get one. I don't know whether that changed it. And I also feel that I haven't had time to, because I bought the deluxe version and there seems to be like a lot of settings and I wasn't, so I've only had like one recipe. So I've basically been doing um, chocolate mint flavored whey protein, uh, about Greek yogurt, fat-free Greek yogurt, some skimmed milk, and then a banana. And I've been just using that. And then I'll mix in some ground nuts and like a bit of dark chocolate. And I'm kind of like, this is okay, but is it blowing my mind? It's nice because you get a lot of volume and it's obviously low calories and stuff like that. So it's great from that. And I feel like considering for what it is, it's like, yeah, I get lots of volume from it and, low calories and it's nice, it's tasty. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's so hard because I don't know whether I was just expecting something to blow my mind. And because it didn't, because it's just, this is nice, that whether that's affected things.
Yeah, maybe you had a thought that it would taste like a Haagen-Dazs or a Ben and Jerry's, but actually no, it's just like it tastes good for what it is. As in,
Yes,
it's better than having a protein shake, but it's basically a protein shake, right? So for like the
exactly.
macros, it's pretty good. I think there's a few things you could do to help yourself. One is you don't add any added sweetener, do you?
No,
So I'm imagining it's not that sweet.
no.
When you freeze things, for whatever reason, to do with taste buds and stuff, you lose quite a lot of flavor. So I
Mm,
would add some salt to it. And I'd also add, if you've got like flav drops or any sweeteners, add that to it as well. Just a little bit. Like I have some flav drops from my protein that I have had for like 10 years. And I just use like one squirt of that. It makes quite a bit of difference because especially on the side, like if you're only doing one scoop of protein powder and then you're putting in like unflavored Greek yogurt, milk, it can kind of make it a bit dull. So if it has
mm,
good texture, but it lacks a bit of flavor, that'll help a ton. And I've actually just modified my recipe recently because I was in Holland and Barrett. I needed to get some final bits and pieces for Charlotte's birthday, and they had xanthan gum and I in there, and I was just like, you know what? People scream and shout about how good xanthan gum is to add to your Ninja Creamy for that kind of mouth feel and texture. I was like, I'm going to try it. I'd always been put off xanthan gum because I've like post traumatic PTSD from having it as like protein fluff and it causing horrible bloating and gas and all of that. But I was using it a lot, and it was a recipe for disaster in that sense. So I've just been using less than half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. I don't know how much. I just add in this small amount, and it really enhances the texture. Actually, it makes it less icy, and it makes it more like ice creamy texture. The banana goes a long way as an emulsifier, but there's a little bit of xanthan gum, and it hasn't done anything terrible to my stomach or anything like that. So, just as a side tip, salt, a bit of extra sweetener, and a little bit of xanthan gum, I think will help.
I think that's what I need, and that's why I haven't been passing judgment on it, because I think it's only the first time I've really used it, so I know that from a recipe perspective and stuff, I haven't got the gist of it, and that's what it felt it needed. There wasn't a intense flavor, there wasn't much flavor coming out of it, and I think you're exactly right. So, and I was even contemplating, I was like, I feel like I need some cocoa powder or something.
I put cocoa
Um,
powder in.
so yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I think that will make the difference and I'll appreciate it that much more. And I'm not saying that I'm not enjoying it. I really am. But it just didn't, it was that combination of like all of those factors plus like lots of people scream and shout about it.
Yeah, I think what I need to do is I've kind of really nailed down that recipe that I use. It's similar to my like croats. Literally, it's rinse and repeat the same every day, which is great because I really enjoy it. But like I want to experiment a little bit, even like with the gelato function or whatever at some point. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
just stuck to what I know and haven't ventured outside of that. The other thing I do is I often make it with casein, like do a for add extra thickness again. It just seems
Mm.
to improve it. But yeah, whey protein is still pretty good for it. And you
Do
do
you
the Greek
think,
yogurt.
yeah, because I was going to say, do you think Greek yogurt would act as the similar way to casein powder?
Don't know. I have to say, when I've used like protein puddings in it before. You know, like you can get the ones
Yeah.
from Lidl or whatever, and I've frozen those and put it in. And I was like, oh, it's gonna be amazing. And I was very disappointed. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't got good recipes with like Greek yogurts and stuff. I just do my protein powders, the skim milk, the banana, and the bits and pieces I said, and seems to work. But if anyone listening has like that, I'd love the listeners to give comments on their go-to Ninja Creamy recipes, and yeah, we can even get like a nice list for anyone who's interested. That would be really helpful.
Yeah. Be the bodybuilder's Ninja Creamy guide.
Yeah. Right. Shall I get to questions? I can ask you the
Yeah,
first one
let's
and I
do
can
it.
go for a toilet break. I didn't think I had one last time, but this time I definitely need it. So the question is from ed recovery underscore lift underscore ed recovery. Sorry. Obviously that's what it is. How do you know if a split isn't working? I.e., yourself with the AM PM schedule. Usually I'm too stubborn to change it for question mark green grass. I guess they're saying like the grass is always greener, like so people always think they should change things, but actually maybe they should stick with what they've got. So anyway, it comes back to that fundamental question, I guess. How do you know if the split isn't working? That's really the question, I think.
Think one question I would start off by asking yourself is, are you excited to go and train? So with the example of the AM and PM schedules, it might be that I'm just, it might be that it's that PM session is just becoming a drag and you're having to drag yourself to the gym as opposed to just being fired up and you can't wait to get into the gym. And then as a byproduct, is it affecting the quality of your sessions? So, you know, maybe because your motivation or your eagerness, or just mojo to train is affected, that's affecting the quality of your training sessions. I think that would be a key thing. And that obviously long term could affect progress. Um, so that's the biggest thing. You know, does your current split fire you up to go and train versus not and do the opposite? So I think that's the biggest thing that I would say there. I think everything else is a little bit probably hard to quantify, probably. And also in fact, actually, the only other things that I would add to that is it affecting other parts of your life? So is your training split affecting your sleep? Is it affecting family, friends, work? Because if it is detrimentally impacting those areas, I would also add that it's probably not working for you either. because that will also be creating stress as well, which again won't be helping your progress. So it's like, right, how's the quality of your training? Um, is that being impacted by your mojo and your oomph and love, desire to want to go and train? And then secondly, are other areas of your life being affected? And I think depending on the answers to those questions, that will probably give you your answer.
I think those are some great points, and I would only add to those, and they're great because I wouldn't have necessarily thought of some of them. My immediate thought to how do you know if a split isn't working is, are your lifts going up? How's performance? Like
Yes.
objectively, that's kind of what I'd be looking at. And then the next thing I'd be looking at is recovery timeline. So are you going to training sessions sore? Or are you going to training sessions like being able to perform well? So anyway, performance is like the objective. You know the split is working if performance is going up over time, or at least maintaining, and that you're feeling recovered for sessions, aka not having like bad overlapping soreness that could impact your performance negatively. But then I think all the factors you mentioned are really, really important ones. I don't know if this is what they're alluding to, but I used to do AM and PM sessions. I did it for years, where I'd do like literally 12 sessions a week. I'd split every session into AM and PM. And it's exactly as you said, like it was becoming just a chore to go do the PM sessions. And I felt like I was at times ending the AM ones when like I have more to give potentially. It's like, why not just get it all done in one go? And it also, like all the factors you said there, suited my lifestyle way better, so on and so forth. And actually, when we did our Revive get together, not that long ago, our training camp, I had some case studies, and one of them was a client, Tim. Shout out to Tim. He probably won't be listening, but shout out to Tim anyway. We reduced his training split, or his frequency, from 6 days to 5 days. And that was just basically to accommodate life. His actual training volume ended up being basically the same, and his results have been just as good, but it's allowed him to live life a little bit more. So I think don't be afraid to like change something, especially if it feels like anything we've said here is like, oh yeah, I am lacking motivation to go train, or it is impeding some areas of life, or my performance is a bit stagnant. I wonder if I am a bit under recovered. You could kind of have a look at a few of those things.
Yeah. And I
Nice.
I totally took for granted and the assumption of,
Performance is improving.
I totally was like, oh, that's already happening. Whoops, don't assume.
Yeah, no, it's just where my immediate thought goes to with, I don't know, first principle type thinking of
Mm,
breaking it down. But I thought your other points were really important as well. So have you got the next question up?
I do. We're on the new block of questions. How good's
Yes.
that?
Yeah, hopefully we
Right.
can keep it like doing the new, well, we don't have to, but we caught up. It was all good.
It's awesome. Right.
Last week was a marathon Q&A.
Julia Zeba, she asks, for muscles that seemingly never get sore, even with high intensity and high volume, how do you know if you're at or close to your maximum adaptive volume or maximal
That's,
recoverable volume?
yeah. So the good news is max recoverable volume is like a objective figure. In that max recoverable volume, the definition is that you're only able to match performance and nothing more. So if that's all you're achieving, then you're at that point. I guess you could argue, hey, I've done 100 by 10, 8, 6, and I managed it this next week, but I still feel like I could do another set of 4. And then could you do it the next week? And it's like, if you could, then you weren't at your max recoverable volume the week before. But maybe then if you did 10, 8, like 10, 8, 6, 4, then the next week, if you ended up dropping performance, then you know actually my max recoverable volume was the 10, 8, 6, because 10, 8, 6, 4 put me over that and I couldn't recover from it anymore. So I guess that's how I kind of define max recoverable volume. And then in terms of like muscles that never get sore, that's incredibly common. I don't use soreness a lot within my assessment of training and training quality. I think it's more of a interesting uh, indicator amongst other indicators that can help triangulate things. But there's a lot of muscles that don't get sore and they grow plenty. And so I wouldn't rely on it too heavily, especially to assess these things. When I'm looking at someone's kind of maximal adaptive volume, I'm also looking at, I prefer to phrase it as stimulus. I've just come to that point where if you just focus on volume, I think you end up missing the forest for the trees sometimes, because there's so many things that impact growth outside of volume. And ultimately, we're not trying to just get volume within training. We're trying to get stimulus. You could get more volume, but not more training stimulus, like muscle growth stimulus. And so when I'm thinking about variables that impact stimulus, it's things from exercise selection to obviously set volume, training intensity. There's multiple things that kind of make up that stimulus. How then do you approximate stimulus? One, you pick exercises that are very productive for you, that have a good stimulus to fatigue ratio. Two, you probably work within like general guidelines of set volumes. That gives you a good gauge, at least, of, hey, maybe 10 to 20 is a good rule of thumb of, if I'm in and around that number, I'm probably doing a damn good job of providing a really good stimulus to my muscle. And then other things you could look at are those biofeedback that give you that SFR in the first place. So are you getting good blood flow and pumps within that muscle? Are you feeling good local fatigue to that muscle? If those things are happening and you're feeling like it's feeling pretty beat up by the end of a workout and by the end of a training week, and that each workout you come in to train that muscle, you're just about recovered on time. It's not like you're super duper fresh, but you're also not like beat up going into it, and you're performing and improving performance over time. Again, objectively, I think MAV is where you are able to adapt and improve upon things. And then you kind of know you're in the ballpark. I think some people get a bit too hyper focused on like making sure that they're absolutely objectively at this point. Is you can't really know that. But I think as long as you feel like, hey, when I train this muscle within a session, it feels like it gets a good working. I don't feel like I'm able to do way more, but equally, I'm not feeling like, man, that was hell to be able to get it done. When I come next to train it, I'm not like, oh, yeah, I've been fresh for days, but I'm also equally not like, oh, man, like I'm beat up and tired and I don't want to go train. You kind of want to be, I think of this max adaptive stimulus as being like, I'm working real hard, close to my limits, but I'm still able to pursue this for an extended period of time. And we essentially just want to milk that for as long as we can. I
Yeah,
don't know
no,
if,
you
yeah,
answered that so comprehensively, and there probably isn't anything else I could add to that as such, but I would just say again, like, don't chase like a certain number or a certain like thing. Don't get caught up in the numbers game as such. Just focus on, like you said, doing a great job, making it really challenging, feeling like you've really stimulated things while you've worked really hard in a good way, but that you're still recovering and you're able to make steps moving forwards. And I think if you can, again, that process almost, I think everything else will kind of fall into place. And ultimately, it doesn't matter. You know, it's kind of, in some sorts of senses, it's totally pointless in some ways. When a bodybuilder steps on stage, it doesn't matter what their scale weight says when they're on stage. It matters how their looks. And I think in this sort of sense, it matters, you know, are you are you working hard? Are you getting to a proximity to failure? Are you still adapting and progressing? It's those sorts of things.
yeah, yeah, I think the adaptation piece is really key. If you are able to recover and improve, you know you're kind of at that point of adaptation. Is it your maximal adaptation? No one ever knows that. But if you are adapting and you're improving, I'd almost be hesitant to change too much and just stay there until you're not. And then you look at, could I be doing more? If you're like, yeah, I feel recovered to push a bit more, maybe you do a bit more. But if you're like, no, I'm super beat up and tired, you're probably at MRV, or like you've hit that ceiling. Now you need to back off and then go again. So yeah, that's great additional points, Mike.
Would you say also it's they are dynamic in time because someone's MAV or someone's MRV is not going to be the same depending on how good a job they're doing with their sleep and their recovery. You know, if someone is like, you know, 10 out of 10 in terms of their recovery, their MRV is going to be totally different compared to if they're underslept, highly stressed. So it's kind of like they're moving targets in a way.
For sure, yeah, I think it's why autoregulation is so key. And that's why we're so big on educating our clients on trying to understand their body and what they're seeing. whilst having that objective data in front of us too. Because yeah, it's like I gave the example of that you could end up being past your MRV because you had a terrible night's sleep over 3 days of the weekend, and maybe you drank alcohol, and now your MRV is now half what it was. So yeah, you're suddenly having to back off. Or quite often we see it when people come out of preps or even just diet phases, where their MRV, their volume tolerance is real low, but each week it's almost exponentially improving as their physiology is recovering from that kind of diet phase. They've got more glycogen available, all of that sort of thing. Or like you said, someone could improve their sleep dramatically, and that suddenly has a huge influence on things.
Yeah, definitely.
Next
Cool.
question is from NJ.Garavaglia. Sorry, I said that terribly. How would you interact with social media if it were strictly for your personal use and not a beneficial part of your business?
Interesting. Okay. Um, First and foremost, I wouldn't be on Instagram, I think. I just
That
I
doesn't surprise
genuinely
me.
I genuinely wouldn't have Instagram if I wasn't doing it for related to coaching, I don't think. Yeah.
Other
It
social media
doesn't interest me
platforms?
at all.
What else are
Sorry?
you on, Mike?
In terms of,
Other social media platforms? Are you on anything else? I'm trying to think. The only other thing would be YouTube because of this.
yeah, that's it, YouTube. That like nothing else. I'm not on any other social media platforms, because it doesn't interest me at all.
That's so
So yeah,
interesting.
that's a simple question, I guess, for me.
Yeah, it's simple for you, for sure. For me, not so simple because I've been on social media. I was on YouTube and I was on Instagram and Facebook before I had a business. So I was already on here sharing my journey on social media because I'd no one in my local vicinity at the time I felt like I could do that with. And I really enjoyed social media. I really enjoyed someone like a Matt Ogus and him sharing his journey. And that inspired me to want to do similar and share my own. So I think I would probably be doing less, even when I changed, even when, again, it wasn't part of my business. I wasn't a personal trainer. You can look back at one of my earliest videos on YouTube, and I was literally a child. And I talked about how I was just sharing my journey, sharing anything I learned and lessons along the way. So I think it would be more of that. It would be more selfish in terms of my posting. I wouldn't think about algorithms. I wouldn't think about likes, shares so much, I don't think. And it would be just more like my training, my personal journey, any kind of thoughts and opinions. But I certainly wouldn't be spending as much time as I do doing kind of educational content. I wouldn't be. I don't think I do this podcast in the same way. I certainly wouldn't be doing it as consistently as I do. I think yeah, I probably would never have done it. It's out of my comfort zone, actually, doing this sort of thing. It's not like in my comfort zone. I enjoy doing these and I enjoy the podcast to some extent. But if you were to tell me, hey, like, you don't need to do it anymore, would I keep doing it? I'm not sure I would. I still want to talk to some of those people that I like, an Eric Helms, like a Mike Israetel, I want to keep up with some of these individuals. And like, I'm so grateful to have met some people and call them friends, but they're like online friends and not. So I might have just like personal interactions with them, but not kind of, yeah, formal recorded podcasts. So anyway, I'm trying to answer this question. I would like to think I use it much less, but I would certainly still be using it because I do enjoy social media and I have seen personal benefits from it outside of business. And I think I'd just share my journey more and it would just be more of my training, more just physique updates. I'd post less regularly. It might be like a couple times a week versus like every day.
Mm, yeah, I think, and on that note, I have definitely noticed, I do appreciate the positive connections and interactions that can come with Instagram. So I have really enjoyed it from that sense, and there have been a couple of occasions where I've enjoyed like, oh, this is fun again, connecting with people, but also creating things sometimes can be enjoyable. Um, but yeah, I think for me it's always it's such a tricky thing. It's not my natural inclination to do it. Um, I don't know whether you'd call it a private person or an introverted person or whatever, but yeah, it just doesn't, it's just something that never is on my agenda kind of thing from a personal perspective.
Yeah, I guess that's, yeah, I don't really know. Yeah, something that always came naturally was social media to me. I have always enjoyed it. And I think one additional point, in back in the old day, I would do many more vlogs. And that was like, I started off with vlogs and I'd do more of those, I think, just because I used to enjoy just like doing those bits and pieces. Yeah, it's weird to think I was doing that before I had any business in, like, I was doing like voiceover training videos and I wasn't in the fitness industry. So yeah, I enjoyed that for some reason and sharing the journey over there. It was always part of it for me.
Yeah. And that's a, I find that quite admirable, to be honest, because I think, again, if you open yourself up to sharing your journey, I think you'll inevitably learn a lot more because you come in, people will connect with you via that. So yeah, I think that's awesome.
Or if you look back at some of those old videos, one, they're super cringe. Two, some of the comments I got were brutal, like proper
Really.
brutal. Yeah, just like I can't even think off the top of my head, but you develop a bit of a thick skin because people comment on your physique, right? And they critique it, and sometimes not in the most productive manner. But yeah, interesting question that. Next
Mm.
one.
Good. Yeah, let's go on to the next one. So Will Raby _ asks, any advice for people trying to get into the fitness industry, and how do you come up with content ideas?
This is so funny that it's very contrasting to the other one.
Mm.
So, trying to get into the fitness industry. Honestly, and this is going to sound like it, the way I first got into this was through sharing my own journey. I think it's such an easy way to do it, is be like, you're not telling others what to do, but you're sharing how you're doing it and you're sharing the results you're getting. And inevitably that comes off as, oh, like you must know something if you know this. And then it's sharing things that you think are valuable in terms of like content ideas. If you share enough value and then every now and then you give them that, you jab, jab, jab with value, you give them the right hook of
Mm.
like, hey, I coach people, I can help you potentially, you can do that. So I do think that's a good piece of advice. I also started as a one-on-one PT. So I did my PT course and I applied for a job at my local gym. I had an interview and I kind of passed that process and I became a one-on-one personal trainer. And then from there developed uh, an online business through helping some of the people in the gym online versus one-on-one. They didn't want that one-on-one help. There's like guys a couple of years younger than me who saw my develop through my personal journey and they're like, I want some of that. Like, what are macros? Like, how are you eating? Why are you training with squats and deadlifts? Like, what's the benefit of those versus doing other lifts? So, kind of practice what you preach. And I think trying to build a bit of a relationship with people in your local vicinity, because one of the hardest things to do online, especially in today's day and age, is building trust. How's anyone going to trust you if you're just some random guy online? It's super hard now, especially with AI. Like, I literally was interacting with someone in my comments and they thought I was an AI bot. I was like, I have no idea why you think I'm an AI bot. They're like, sure, whatever, Steve AI. I was like, do I need to take like a selfie here of me like sat here talking to you or like do a video recording? Sorry, a video or like a voice note. But people are really not trust is super low. So if you can build up a bit of a kind of, what's it called? Clientele through family, friends, people in your local vicinity, colleagues, what have you, that's going to be helpful to then build results. And then that result of like before and afters or testimonials is going to provide more trust and buy-in from other people. In terms of, I don't know if you have anything on that first question, Mike, if you have thoughts on it.
I think just the only thought I had was I think it's really important to build experience. So what you mentioned about doing one-on-one PT work, I think just building that base level of experience. When I think of myself as a physio, I volunteered in sports clubs and for various sports teams for nothing, and you know, did a lot of hours unpaid just to get that base level of experience. But that served me later down the line. It allowed me to gain knowledge. It allowed me to do various things. And I think there's a certain element of you just need to get some experience first, and that will give you the knowledge to then share what you've learned with others. So there is a certain element to that. Again, you can't look at people who are 10 steps ahead of you and expect to be exactly where they are. You have to start, who's the person one step in front of you first and then follow them.
Yeah, and I will say, in addition to everything you mentioned there, because I think this also builds upon that, and some of the things I said, is networking. I think goes a heck of a long way. When I think about, like, for example, like with yourself, Mike. Yes, you're a client of mine, and we've built rapport and relationship that way, and that's what's brought you on as a coach. But also, you came to seminars we did, and we met in person, and we spent time together. And so that networking, again, you're kind of building trust on my end as well through doing that. And when I think about, even when obviously I brought on Pascal, one of the main reasons I ended up bringing on Pascal was I'd met him a couple of times at seminars. And so I already knew him as an individual. I was like, I know we get on. So that really helped in that situation too. So I think, yeah, networking just goes a long way, even down to Andy Morgan, as an example, from ripbody.com. He was a bit of a mentor to me when I was first starting Revive Stronger. And that was actually, how did that come about? That was through the podcast. I interviewed him on my podcast, and then we chatted afterwards. So it's just networking, and that doesn't even have to be in person. Sometimes it can be communicating with people online. So put yourself out there, I think, is a second tip. The next part of the question was, and how do you come up with content ideas? Which is funny because I know you were kind of struggling with this a little bit. And by the way, we all struggle with it always, because everything's been said 100 times over. So it's really hard to come up with anything that you feel like is new. The way that I said it to Mike, and I think this is a great way, but you need clients for it, is when you're, and this is actually really tough because I quite often think of ideas of content when I'm interacting with my clients, but it's in a check-in, and I'm like, oh man, that'd be a great piece of content. And then I forget it by the end of the check-in. I literally had it multiple times during some of today's check-ins. But whatever you've been working on with clients, their questions, their concerns, like you can build a, like, have notes down of like, okay, my clients asked me this week. I can make content out of those. You could do content as like the content you do as a reel, you can build into a carousel. So it can be like different that way. You can build that into a long format YouTube video if you want to. Obviously, you can also look at kind of checking out social media as a whole, look at what's being put out there. Someone else might be doing this with their clients. They say, my client asked this was my answer. You might be like, oh, I'd actually have a different answer to that. So then you might build your content around that. So I think that they're great ways. Or just if you lack clients, then you might be like, right, what podcasts have I listened to this week? What books have I read? Or what's been interesting in that regard? And then pick something you learned from one of these pieces of information and build that into a piece of content. As much as I say, like, I struggle for content ideas sometimes, there is infinite content.
Mm.
Another way, and we've got a blessing here, but also maybe a curse, ChatGPT is right there. So if you need ideas, ask ChatGPT. I think the problem with that is we're soon going to see just carbon copies. And that's part of the problem with being online, actually, and using social media as like a content production inspiration. You can just get kind of lost in other people's content because it's just the same piece of content done again. So there are at least some ones that come to the top of mind. I don't know, when you're looking for inspiration, Mike, what do you think of?
Well, as part of that, in addition to that, something that has really helped me in terms of just capturing ideas is it's really old school, but it's a good old post-it note. And I literally just have them around. And then when an idea pops into my head, like with a client, I'll just like write it down and then I'll just have it somewhere so that when I'm like, oh, what ideas do I need? I've then got a bunch of ideas and I'm like, okay. Or I'll write it in the notes section of my phone or something. So I've always got those ideas. I guess m- my personal, sometimes where I get a bit paralysis by analysis is then um sort of creating it in a sense. So you've got the raw idea, but then I think, it needs to be this, the quality of the production almost. It's like, I need to have this jazzy thing and that jazzy thing, and that sometimes prevents me from doing it. I spend so much time thinking about the music, and it's like, Mike, don't kind of spend too much time worrying about the minutia and just get it out there really. So that's my issue sometimes as well.
Add to that, I'll say once you've found a way of producing a style of content, it's easy to rinse and repeat that style of content and then almost bulk produce if you can. So I did a series, and that actually really helped me. It was like a muscle growth series, basically. I can't remember. No fluff, just muscle series. I've actually still got some videos to put out, but I record like 5 at one go, where I'd script them all out and I'd set up my lighting and set up here, and I just talk them through, and then obviously I have to go through and edit them all, which takes time. But once you've got your process down, it's way easier to do like the time it would take you to do one piece of content like that every day versus doing 5 in one day and then having them for other times, you'd save like 25% to 40% of the time probably, or maybe even up to 50% versus having to remake it every day. Or if you do like a carousel, having like in Canva, just having like a standard format that you use and then duplicate it and then just edit the posts and not having to like remake it every time. It's similar to like programming for clients. Like you have clients who are very similar, you might duplicate that program and then modify slight things with the split, exercise order, exercise selection, that sort of thing. But you don't have to delete. I quite often do this. I do this way too often. Delete out everything, start blank, and type in everything from fresh. I do that way too often because it takes more time. But yeah, I think that's good. And then the only other thing I'll say, Mike, is look at old content you've done. It could be 3 to 6 months ago. People have fucking forgotten. You can repost it or recreate it in a different style, and obviously do ones that have done well.
Yeah.
Don't pick the ones that haven't done well.
Yeah. Oh, great stuff. That was a good one. Yeah. Oh no. Is it who asked? Did I ask the last question? Yeah, I think so. You need to ask this question.
Sorry, yeah, you were going, and I was like, is it you or me? I'm going to let you ask if you want to ask. But Vale.delamura asks, hi guys, if you had to eat only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be? Oh,
I
one
feel like it would have to
food.
be some sort of protein dish because where the games
So you
would
can't
go
pick
if
a
we didn't
meal,
eat
can you?
protein. It's got to be one food.
So I can't pick pizza or a burger. It has to be cheese or beef or bun. Right.
So I think on that note, if it had to only be one food, and if I was thinking functionally in terms of bodybuilding, I would probably be like, And it depends whether you could have condiments or not, because if condiments weren't allowed, I would probably then say maybe like beef or fish or something like that, potentially.
Hmm. Yeah, you bring up a good point on the condiments because my immediate thought is, of course, not allowed. But if you're allowed condiments, then theoretically you'd be allowed supplements, and then you don't have to be as concerned about micronutrient deficiencies, vitamins, minerals, that sort of thing. And also just
Mm.
whey protein, casein. Does protein powder now count as a supplement, or is
Yeah,
that a food? Oh, we're bending the rules here.
this
I
is
think,
hard.
yeah, because you have my mind goes two ways. It goes, okay, survival, or
Mhm.
just what food is my favorite to just eat regularly. And it's a tough one because I don't think I eat any one food like individually on its own that regularly. So it's
Yeah.
a tough question. When I think about survival, I'm thinking my immediate thoughts go to things like um, whole milk,
Mhm.
or because obviously babies grow off that. It has carbs, it has fats, it has proteins, has a good amount of kind of minerals and vitamins in there. And then I go towards like a whole egg. Something along those lines is what I go to for like survival and being good. I think milk might be egg because it has carbohydrates.
It is fluid though, so that you can't ever eat any. You couldn't eat it though, could you?
Could you? How do you make, like, could you use milk to then make cheese? Could you use
True.
milk to, oh, we have broken this
True.
down so well. You do whole milk and then you can make all of the dairy products because it's still
True.
just one food, right?
Oh, you'd become like a scientist, wouldn't you? Because you'd have to break the whey from the
Yeah,
casein,
yeah.
and If we were on a desert island though, you'd have to like make some sort of filter to separate the whey from the cake. You'd become like a proper genius, with milk on an island.
That makes me think of Dr. Stone, the anime. If you've never seen it, you might enjoy that one. I think you probably would, Mike. Dr.
Okay, it's
Stone.
going on the list.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll have to remind you of it.
Dr. Stone.
I don't think I'm up to date on it, but it's almost what you just described a little bit. He's like a genius, and he is left on planet Earth with very little. So,
Mm.
yeah, I won't. That's as spoilery as it gets for that one. If you just had to pick one meal, what would you pick? Just for preference.
Okay, just for preference.
This is
I
your
need more.
what's it called? You're gonna get killed because just death by injection, or like you've done some terrible things. You got the death penalty. You have a final meal. What's that? What is it?
I think it would just be like a massive burger and chips.
Sorry, I'm laughing at my terrible joke.
Massive burger and chips. That's what it would be.
Okay.
Like a meaty burger and chips.
Yeah, my immediate thought goes towards pizza, but I'm now wanting to break it down into like a starter, a main, a dessert,
Uh,
maybe some sides. But yeah, I think I'm not sure I'd even be hungry if I was just about to be killed. Anyway, right. The next one is for you to ask, isn't it?
yeah. So lifting Lewis 5 asks, I want to prioritize meals around training, but fearful of being hungry. Previously been pushing calories to the last meal. What would be your approach?
Just before I answer this question, I want to just inject a reminder to people because I meant to do this earlier in the episode. If you're thinking, where are you getting these questions from? They're from Instagram, and you need to join the Hypertrophic Time Chamber, which is my broadcast group where I barely post in there at all. I almost was like, oh, it could be recalled the Improvement Season podcast broadcast group or something better than that. But anyway, I'm probably not going to change it. Regardless, I just post in there every week asking for your questions. So long as you're on Instagram and you're not a Mike who wouldn't be on Instagram, you can join that group and ask a question. Or if you aren't there and you're listening to this on YouTube, just drop a comment and ask there. We'll probably see it and I'll make a note of it someplace, or directly DM me or Mike and we'll try and keep a note of it. But ideally, just join that group because that's where we're collating them. But to answer Lewis's question, so this is really interesting because the immediate comment of fearful of hunger is just so interesting to me. The fact that like I always think about it with training as well, like people being scared to do a lift. When you think about it, it's just, what's the worst that can happen? That you fail. It's not that bad. It's not like you break a leg. Like realistically, on a hack squat or whatever it is, you just fail. It's not scary. It's not actually scary. It's similar to like being hungry. What's the worst? It's just being hungry. It's not really something to fear. It's just a normal physiological response from your body. And then you learn. Like if you fail a lift, you learn. Oh, okay, maybe it was a bit much that week. What can I do to improve next time? And if you are hungry, what could you do to change it? And so what I'd suggest is like do the minimal change possible to your routine right now. What could you do right now to just remove a small amount of food from the end of the day, move it closer to training, and then see how you go with that? You might find no difference and actually training performance is better. Brilliant. Or you might find, oh, that was a bit much. Maybe I need a little bit in that evening to abstain hunger and allow for me to adhere. Or you might find, hey, you know what? I was a bit hungry in the evening, but when I went to bed and went to sleep, it was fine. I was completely cool. It's not a problem. Um, and hunger is multifaceted too. So that could be driven by just like food cravings. You're just wanting to eat something, like your food environment. So there's a lot of ways to modify and mitigate hunger that you might not already be doing, but certainly it's something that we regularly see, Mike, and we have both done it and
Yeah.
continue to fall into it now and then because it is very typical. But it's so funny because the old saying is like something along the lines of like breakfast as a king, lunch as a prince, and then dinner as a pauper. And that was to do with, I don't know, something related to, past a certain time, you're not expending calories, and so you're more likely to store it as body fat or whatever. Whereas actually we learn energy balance at the end of the day, the end of the week, that's what actually matters, not when you're eating the calories necessarily. And then further evidence has come out through chrononutrition, where it's like, oh, actually we're a little bit more insulin sensitive earlier in the morning, so we maybe use those calories a little bit better. People who eat more earlier in the day maybe expend a little bit more during the day, so they're a bit better on that front too. Having a big feeding before bed might lead to worse sleep. So it's like, oh, actually, that saying has some credence. And then
Mm.
also, for fueling training, it is ideal to have some food around that. And as you've mentioned many times, Mike, the most important thing seems to be not being hungry going into training. But if you are in a diet, fasted state, you're doing a high volume training session, you're more likely to be depleting glycogen. You're going to want some carbohydrates going into that session or even during that session. So I definitely would try and just reflect on your goals. What am I trying to do? Realize how important training is, and then make a small modification to your current setup to utilize some calories around training, see how that goes, and just make small adjustments versus suddenly making your dinner really small, making your pre-workout meal and post-workout meal huge, and then being like, oh, now I am starving. But you might find that small change is absolutely fine, and it actually doesn't impact your hunger in the evening at all. So yeah, those were where my thoughts initially go, Mike.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great answer. I think maybe I'll just add a slightly different perspective as well. And to give a bit of a quote as well, is a Stoic quote, which is, we suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality. So
That's
that
so true,
fear
by
of,
the
oh,
way.
I'm going to be hungry. It's like this, you're making that in your head, and you will probably get to that point in the evening and you're like, oh, actually, it wasn't that bad. And then the second point is, what's the number one way you overcome a fear? Graded exposure, which is exactly what you talked about, Steve. And so it's just about, you've got to expose yourself to that. And so exactly what Steve said in terms of that practical application, you've just got to start applying it. Otherwise, you're just literally, making that fear continue. And then the final thing that I would just say is probably the best thing that you can have is, if you've got a partner or someone that you're living with, it's like, just literally tell them, I don't want to have a big meal. If you see me having a big meal, then stop me, or, make sure that I eat a small meal. And I think that just in-person, like, accountability will just help build that momentum, which will hopefully, because I think once you're on the right track, you're fine, but it's getting started that's the hardest thing. So once you're there, I think you're good.
Yeah, well said. I think those two bits were really helpful. And the only final comment is just a bit of a, to play devil's advocate. Why does anything need to change? Like, if they're seeing good results in the gym and they're adhering to their diet, why does anything have to change? Because I think
Yeah.
sometimes we think something has to change because, like, oh, people say it's really important to put food around your training. It's like, I mean, yeah, in theory, yes, it could help results. But if you're already seeing results and you're happy with them, there's no need to change it. You don't have to. So that would be my only final thought. Shall I ask the next
Yeah.
one?
Let's do it. Go.
So, Teddy Gross _ official. Any thoughts or experiences with agonist or pre-exhaust supersets, e.g., laterals into upright rows, into dumbbell press 2 to 3 times?
Interesting on the two. So yes. So hamstrings was definitely one area. So we would typically program, would go lying leg curls and then into stiff-legged deadlifts. And that was for more of a mind-muscle connection in terms of helping to fatigue the hamstrings a little bit. So they were more of a limiting factor going into the stiff-legged deadlift. And that personally helped me quite a lot for a long time. But that was the main one, I would say.
Not
I
superset
think
though, right?
yeah. No, it's not a superset. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Or just
But other than
pre-exhaust.
that, we haven't done any formal supersets or anything like that, I don't think.
I've programmed them occasionally where it's like a leg extension into a sissy squat. It's not
Yes.
really quite the same because it's the same muscle group, but I kind of call them well, I guess that is agonist in some ways, like same muscle group supersets. So I probably have at some point, maybe not for a while, done like dumbbell laterals into upright rows. I've done those in the past and I've programmed those, or doing like again, you might do a leg extension into a walking lunge as like a superset. And I use them mostly to just generate crazy metabolites and get a crazy pump within the muscle. Another one would be like a dumbbell fly into dumbbell press, or dumbbell or a fly machine into press ups, or doing what's another one? Oh, I've done like skull crushers into like a close grip dumbbell press as like a tricep,
Mm,
or overhead extensions, like easy bar overhead extensions to like a close grip overhead press. I've done that. So I think for a metabolite technique, they can be great. And as you mentioned, for like pre-exhausting, so that muscle is more likely to be the limiting factor and you might get a better connection with it. They can be really helpful. They seem to help some muscle groups more than others. But yeah, that's they're not like I would say the pre-exhaust is more of a case by case, person to person, where if they struggle to connect with the muscle or to make sure that the muscle we want to be the limiting factor is the limiting factor, to do that. Uh, Another situation where I might do that is if we want to maybe reduce the systemic fatigue and axial load. So it might be that doing leg extensions before hack squats means you can't do as much on the hack squat, but your quads still get really good work. And so it just improves the overall SFR for someone who's like, yeah, finds that very fatiguing for them potentially, or you're doing it maybe twice a week and it's a bit of variation for them. And then the intensity technique of supersetting one exercise into the next with the same muscle groups, like an isolation into a compound, is more of like a metabolite technique that's threaded in now and then as a bit of variation and novelty, and potentially targeting some pathways for hypertrophy that we're not getting through just straight sets.
yeah. Like, it's funny because as you were mentioning all that, I was like, oh yeah, we
You've
did
probably done
that.
all
We
of
did
them.
that. Yeah. And I was like, oh, we've actually done quite a lot.
Yeah.
But it really just strikes me as you were saying that as well. Again, it's a tool depending on the individual. Again, it's not, better or worse. It's like, hey, what's your situation right now and what's the tool good for the job?
Yeah, exactly. Time for one more
Mhm.
question.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Oh,
Beamy asks, any exercises to avoid for a female with anterior pelvis tilt? How to address it?
well, this is better for you, Mike.
Go on, do you want to have a little stab?
ah, any exercises to avoid female with anterior pelvic tilt. So I've not had much experience with this where someone just has like, it's more like they move into anterior pelvic tilt through exercises. It's not like they're stood and clearly have this functional, um, I guess, dysfunction within their physique. And I've actually forgotten, this is something I definitely studied when I did my PT. And it's like if you were to have that, basically there's some muscles that are tight versus others. You might do some stretches that can help
Mm,
get you into neutral, and so stretches and then also strengthening some other muscles too. It's kind of similar to that. Makes me think of a lot of guys end up kyphotic with their shoulders rounding because they don't train their back and they train their chest. So then you would do more like face pulls, upper back work, that sort of thing, maybe stretching out the pecs a little bit more. Anterior pelvic tilt, yeah, if someone's you stretch the muscles that are tight, like the hip flexors and things, and you just kind of strengthen the muscles that are going to put you into a more neutral position as well. So, but I've not had to go through and address it with someone from my understanding. Yeah, so like I said, you probably are better off answering this.
No, I think first and foremost is like, is it causing a problem? Is it causing pain? Is it causing, is it contributing maybe to an injury? Um, and also secondly, there is nothing inherently damaging or wrong within anterior pelvic tilt. Like I said, what matters probably more is dynamically how is that affecting their movement during exercise, during daily life? Because if someone how we stand in a relaxed position or just in a neutral position, statically, that doesn't really matter at all because everyone genetically is going to have a different structure and a different makeup. So again, if you were to look at, you know, from an ethnicity perspective, you know, Afro-Caribbean people, they tend to have a more prominent lordosis, a more prominent anterior pelvic tilt, but that's natural. That's not a bad thing. They don't have any pain or anything like that. It's just them, you know, whereas other ethnicities might not have that as much, but it's not a bad thing. It doesn't make someone more susceptible to injury or more susceptible to pain. But what matters is dynamically, how are they controlling their body as they go through movements? And is that a problem or not? So I think that's kind of a caveat I would have. I would say if it's not giving you any pain, if it's not contributing to any injuries or problems, you do not need to worry about it. Um, and again, as a female, I would say there's no exercises that you need to avoid. Um, yeah. And it would just be a simple case of, right, if it is contributing to a problem, if it is contributing to pain or injury, what's the context of that? So when are you getting it? Where are you getting it and when are you getting it? So if it's during a particular part of an exercise or part of a movement, then right, let's address that. And that will then probably allow us to identify like what specific exercises you might do. But typically speaking, if you're looking to obviously reverse like an anterior pelvic tilt, that's going to be more things like, engaging your abdominals a little bit more, again, glutes, it might be those sorts of things, that will be kind of my general answer to that.
It feels like what I was looking for was it reminds me of posture and how that became a real thing where people are like, oh, there's this perfect posture. I must be in neutral, must have chest up, shoulders back, and like so on and so forth. And that's kind of that myth. It's a myth, right? And it's been like busted. It's like, hey, there isn't a perfect posture. You probably don't want to be stuck in the same position for a long time and cause discomfort that way. But as long as you're kind of moving about here or there, you change the way you're stood and things, you're probably okay. And I think that kind of, when I think of first principles, it comes back to similar to that person who's like fearing hunger and stuff. It's like, but is it a problem? It's like, is it a problem? Like, are you in pain,
Hmm.
dysfunction? Are you able to do everything you need to be doing? Maybe there's nothing that needs to be done. So yeah, great answer, Mike.
Yeah, no, you're totally right on that point.
Nice. Cool. We have two more
Cool.
questions for next time, but we're in a good position here. I don't know if we
Yeah.
have any reminders. No, nothing. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. The only thing to say is, as a reminder, guys, we are an online coaching company. That is what we do. In fact, I saw today Mike had a new sign up. I won't say the name. I almost gave it away just then, but I am. Did you have a consult today? Was that today, Mike?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, nice. So they signed up immediately. That's always nice when that happens. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. So that's really cool. But yeah, we're an online coaching company, so we help people take it to bodybuilding stage, photo shoot, just general fat loss. Obviously, Mike is a physio too, so if you have any particular injuries and things you have to work around, he is an expert in that. He'll be able to help you with that. So we have Ryan Solomon on the team too. So yeah, we make sure to make our coaching very dynamic and cumulative. What I mean by that is we do check-ins, and I think the thing that differentiates our coaching most from others is not only do we do a video back to you, you send us a video check-in. So rather than just filling out a form or filling out a spreadsheet and then we respond to that, we review a 5 up to like 15-minute video of you talking through your week, ask any questions, and that just allows you an opportunity to really describe how everything is on your end and really get off your chest everything you need to, but also give us some insights that we might not be able to gather through a form or through an email. And yeah, we just build really great relationships with our clients that way, and ultimately we find that to be super important. So yeah, if you are interested in coaching with anyone on the team, you can apply. It's always linked in the description. You can learn more there. Drop us a DM over on Instagram or wherever. That'd be great. We can chat through with things. But that was the only other thing to remind people of, because we don't have adverts anymore going through this to tell people about
No,
coaching.
you lucky people, no adverts. So it seems like
Just
every other
YouTube or
podcast or whatever,
Spotify.
it's like adverts or whatever. Yeah, apart from that.
So, guys, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next time. Take care.
See you later, guys.